So today we actually have 3 founders with us. Some of them are multi-founders, some of them first time?
Yep.
First time founder? Awesome. So we actually have a bunch of questions for you. They got to see them ahead of time also. So we are gonna just actually get kicked off with each of them introducing themselves. But before that, let's just welcome them to class. All right, Laura, do you want to start?
Hi, yeah,
Cool.
I'm Laura Malcolm, and I am the founder and CEO of Give Kind.
Awesome.
Can you tell a little bit about Give Kind in case someone didn't do their homework and research?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're a marketplace that makes it possible for people to lend a hand during times of need from anywhere. So GoFundMe, Meal Train, Amazon Wishlist, we've kind of brought a couple of platforms together into one solution for helping out from anywhere.
Cool.
That's awesome. Hi, my name is Jason Needham. I'm the CMO and co-founder of Cloud Choreo. As of last week, I guess Cloud Choreo was bought by VMware. So if you search for Cloud Choreo and VMware, you'll kind of see the news on that. But we were and still are a cloud security product. So we would go in and scan for Amazon infrastructure, look for misconfigurations and security vulnerabilities. And that's what we do. And we'll be doing the same thing inside the larger company.
I'm Alex Berg. I run growth for Rep the Squad. So we're a jersey subscription club for super fans. Kind of the easiest shorthand we use is sort of old school Netflix for for jerseys, or GameFly, or Rent the Runway for jerseys, sort of depending upon whom I'm talking to. So we're just a platform for kind of super fans to express themselves and swap different jerseys for different players, different styles, change their look, things like that.
Cool. All right, so for the first question, a little bit longer, but so all 3 of you are founders of one or more companies, and some of the business models of your companies seem similar to others that already exist today. So how did you think about actually going out there and starting a new business in a space like yours?
I'll go first. Sure.
The power seats.
Yeah. Our position was a little unique. So my company is actually a spin out of Madrona Labs Group. So basically, a lab, an incubator within a venture company. So they did some initial exploration on the idea. They do tons of ideas, and they kill a lot of them really quickly. But as they were putting kind of the idea of Squad through the paces, they did progressively a little bit more and more research, either quantitative or qualitative, understanding the market. And as they kind of kept getting indicators that, hey, it feels like there's something here, then it's like, okay, let's fund this. Let's look for a management team to kind of spin it out and kind of take it out from there. So that's where my involvement really came in. I'm not the one who had the idea or who had the insight. They developed it, frankly, and then brought in my co-founder and myself to try and build a company based on that. So a little unique position ours. So it was nice to get a bit of a head start in terms of the research being done and having the support of Madrona. But they also take a little piece of the company when they do that. So.
You want to go?
Sure.
So in my case, I think ours was a classic case of seeing something that was out there and knowing we could do it better, and not just do it better for users, but figure out how to monetize it. So we started Give Kind after somebody set up a meal train for us. And I don't know if anybody has ever been on Meal Train. I hadn't until I networked with a bunch of other moms and families that were using it. But it's a clunky old platform that kind of has the market share, and they didn't monetize it in any way that made sense. And so once we used it, we said, this is poor technology. It's not updated for users, and I have a much better way to drive revenue from this product than they currently are doing. So the nice thing is that we've gone out, and while I have a comparison and go, oh, this is Meal Train on steroids is kind of how we describe it. People go, oh, but you've made it look better, work better, and you figured out a much clearer way to drive revenue than asking customers for it. So no problem kind of ripping off somebody's existing product in that case.
Yeah, so I think when you have a business model disruptor, that's a fantastic lever because it's undeniable, especially when somebody comes, from from left field and basically does that. I think Amazon has done that for the cloud. And so if you look at every enterprise that's been out there, it's like, the equivalents that get drawn to that are like utility computing. In the early days, companies were running their own generators and their own power, and that really wasn't their core business. And so Amazon has come in and provided a per minute, per second pricing, and that just allows a lot of companies to move things from CapEx to OpEx. But most of my companies have not. We've tried to incorporate a business model disruption, but a lot of the ideas have just come on, the back of, okay, where are the trends, where are the drivers, what's emerging, and how can we solve, a new problem or bring a new technology. And when you do that, you start a race that you have to win. Because there's a lot of other people that are trying to catch up. So you have to make sure you have a defensible position and continue to execute. But for the most part, I think you can look at existing markets and say, how can we solve a problem better, streamline it, reduce the friction, and really change the game on the current dynamics. And you can do that with technology, and you can do that with business models.
Elaborate on one point from earlier just about the inception of our company. It did really start with one person's idea, a guy named Ryan Metzger, who was a complete Jersey nut and has over 50 of them, and basically recognized that, hey, this is a huge industry, so there's billions of dollars there, so first off, money. And there's a problem with it because players get traded, and it totally sucks when you're left kind of holding the bag on this jersey for a guy who's now on maybe an arch rival or kind of another team. So they took that idea and then they did what I would advocate any entrepreneur do, is like get your butt out of the office and go talk to who you think your customers are, and started interviewing kind of people coming out of Seahawks Stadium or doing surveys, which is like Survey Monkey, and kind of buying lists and just trying to get out there and say, hey, is there something there? Before we get too far, before we invest any real money in this kind of idea, is it even going to resonate? Should we even get started? So a lot of it really started with Ryan.
I have one more follow-on thing too, because when you go into an existing business that has solutions, I think the bar for you to meet the minimum requirements of the market can be higher. So you have to find a new dimension to compete on. I think that's a great example. There probably really wasn't any options out in the market for doing those things. So it's much easier sledding to be unique, to sell your brand, to bring something new to the market. So if you're going after an existing spot, you really have to figure out the story and the uniqueness to the story, because it's hard because there's inertia to it.
Yeah, on one hand, it can really work to your advantage being unique because you've got a unique proposition. And some other times it can be hard if you're creating a category, because then it's like, oh crap, now I have to create awareness of my category. Now I have to pursue an audience that might not actually be searching for my business because they don't know this thing exists. It's like Jersey rental was not a thing, and we're trying to make it a thing, but people aren't out there Googling it. So if you're thinking like, oh, I'm going to buy some pay-per-click terms, and I'm going to drive traffic, and I'm going to do some landing page testing and some sort of like standard tactics and things you can do, those might not be there for you if your category is truly unique. But then in the long run, obviously that can help you out quite a bit. So there's trade-offs on both sides.
So as you were going through the market research to develop this product or service for this unmet need, do you have any stories to tell about if you needed to ever pivot to kind of go in a slightly different direction? So some students here are in a Create a Company class, and their product idea didn't get funded. So they have to now pivot. So if you have any of those real experiences, I think that'd be great to share.
I can actually share the current experience. So this is, Cloud Choreo is my second. The first startup I did was in a similar space, but on this case, I came back into the market looking for ideas in an area in cloud, and I met a gentleman who had essentially cut his teeth doing cloud deployments. And so I spent the first 6 months kind of interviewing the entire market and customers, all the guys that I knew, and basically bringing this guy and this idea and this approach in front of folks. And everyone loved it because it solved, not just a deployment, but a maintenance problem that was an issue in cloud computing. And from the time when we did those interviews to when we fundraised and when we started writing code, there was like a bend in the curve for in the market for an open source product called HashiCorp, Terraform. So it's a cloud deployment tool. So on one side, it felt like they had kind of really won developer mindshare, and they had some other products and halo effects of things that they were doing around those products. So it felt like a very steep hill to climb. And on the other side, it also was an open source, a free product. So we essentially made the choice in collaboration with a couple of our key customers, which we only really had a handful at the time, to really focus in on security. And we just felt like there's more money in security. There was, they were looking at some more burning problems that they had to solve around sort of real risk and real cost to them. And it felt much cleaner in terms of who we were selling to, because there's usually someone in an organization who owns security, whereas in a developer-driven environment, it's kind of a groundswell, and it already had felt like we were a little late on that. So to me, it was, the markets change quickly, and so you can get an indicator that there's a need, and then things can shift, and you really want to have that rock and the solid ground of what your mission is, and you don't want to be shifted by every trend and everything that happens in the market. But sometimes you just gotta make the moves, and so that was just a recent experience for us that we had to go through. So it took us about 3 months in to make that decision. But it's just a process to sort of get everyone aligning into the new story. And I could share more about it, but that was one I just lived through. So, and it was painful, actually.
We had more of a market-based positioning kind of pivot. It was just, when we got a lot of quantitative data from Madrona, the first thing I was like, okay, I want some qualitative. I want to get to the why behind some of this stuff. So we did some focus groups just to talk to super fans, a group of guys and a group of moms of kind of kids who were super fans. And at our first description of kind of describing the business, about halfway through the focus group, like the first guy was like, I think this is a terrible idea. And it's like, as the founder, who I'm supposed to be the unbiased focus group moderator, but of course, like, oh God. And it's like, this is a proposition for basically fair weather fans or bandwagon fans to just jump from team to team. And of course, I'm thinking like, no, that's not what. I had to let him kind of play it through, and it kind of made its way around the room as everybody kind of tore down the idea, thinking that this was about like, oh, I want to wear Steph Curry, and then I want to wear LeBron, and then I want to wear Russell Wilson. And so I was like, I had to take that feedback, this like gut punch for like 10 minutes, because it was super valuable information to hear. That's how they responded to the articulation of the idea. And then backpedaling, it's like, well, I think in this case, what the founders of the company are envisioning, that it's for super fans to rep like the same players, on their existing teams, to kind of rep their city. And then people are like, oh, so I could rep like the whole Legion of Boom. Like, oh, okay, I get it. So not like a business pivot, but super valuable for me to understand the sensitivities around bandwagon fans and how that was immediately distasteful to was our really core customer. So that made sure that in our positioning, we were really thinking about like rep your city, rep your team. It's about players. It's not about jumping from team to team. Super important learning for us. And I wouldn't have gotten that if I hadn't gotten out of the class or gotten out of the office.
So we have not pivoted, but we have narrowed our focus significantly, which I think can feel like a pivot, certainly. So when we launched, Givenkind was a little bit of an everything to everyone, because I think that we were looking at who's the target user of some of our competition. So if you look at GoFundMe, right, and you look at the situations that they cover, which is like raise money because of cancer treatment or some other medical situation or a house fire, a car accident, you go, okay, there's all of these times where people need support. So we will create a platform that also targets all of those situations, because we know that we can do it. And we also want to make it available nationally, because so many of the products that we offered to send to give support are available nationally, right? We have kind of an e-commerce backing, like why not? Why do we need to limit this? And we've learned over the last year and a half, both through looking at who is using our platform. And it turns out it's majority for new babies. And then on the advice from investors with deep experience in marketplaces, saying you kind of set yourself out as a platform to be used by everyone, but what you're really building is this local marketplace, and so focus on that. And it's hard, and I don't know if everybody's background determines what about launching a company is hard, but as a product person, right, I'm very feature rich. I'm very I want things to be perfect before I get them out, and so it was much easier to want to build the whole thing before getting it out there. And the idea of narrowing down is really tough. But instead, now we are entirely focused on acquiring new moms in Seattle, which it feels so small when you've spent a lot of time building something that is so much bigger. So that's as close as we've come to a pivot, but it feels like it because your energy definitely gets more focused on something different.
Awesome. So you kind of mentioned your first audience, or I guess your narrowed audience now. How did you each first find your first customers? Outside maybe the friends and family, sending out the email, this is what you're going to do. What were those first customers, and how did you find them, or how did they come to you?
So we lend ourselves very well to social marketing. So, we have a combination of Facebook ads. We have a lot of content marketing that we do. And right now, while we just went back into we spent all of Q4 on a new dev push, we're still driving a lot of traffic through organic, which I think doesn't get a lot of attention right now because it's so easy to, buy Facebook ads or boost a post or run a campaign on Instagram, but like SEO is still king. And I'll talk in a bit about my work with the Female Founders Alliance, and that the fellow founders that I talk to every day are saying the same thing. So not to forget about organic traffic as a much lower acquisition cost. But those, so ours are coming in from social channels, from organic traffic, content marketing, kind of a pretty good mix still.
What was the question again?
How did you find your first customers, or how did they find you?
Yeah, so my companies have traditionally focused on enterprise space and enterprise IT, or the IT buyers. So it tends to be, content marketing, educational pieces. Those are great. Video is very good for it's kind of short educational whiteboard type style discussions. So I think those are fantastic. In our industry, a lot of it is, trade shows and live events. And I think, there's a whole lot of tools, and people are taking risks to bring your tools into the company. And so they need to trust. So personal referrals. I think it's great to, my strategy has always been, I want to know, the first 10 to 12 customers. I want to know that I'm satisfying some need, and then I'll ask them to intro me into, the next ring down. And if I can't close those guys, I'm not going to spend a lot of marketing dollars trying to amplify. So at some point between those first friends and getting the next rung out, for me, it's really kind of having the content marketing that serves a base, but then working from a referral network and in live events. And that's how we've kind of built that second rung.
I'd say initially for us, it was PR. We've been fortunate in the PR because it's kind of like renting jerseys is kind of a curious topic. So I think that helped us get just press on that alone. And then also just the fact that it's sports related and timing with the NFL launch, where there's just a lot of built up interest. So PR has been great for us. We've certainly done a lot in experimenting with Facebook ads and Instagram, and I think just recently turning the corner on figuring out the right ads and the right targeting, because that can take you months of experimentation and money to figure out the right audience to target and exactly what's going to resonate with them. And I will kind of double down on SEO too. There's that saying that like the best time to plant a tree is yesterday. The same thing is true for SEO. So if you're raising money in your initial A round or a C round, or if you're funding yourself, right, you don't have any data to kind of fall back on, right? It's all speculation, and hopefully people believe in you and they believe in your idea, or maybe you have a little bit of traction you've been able to cobble together on your own. But when you want to get other people to invest, if you're marketing particularly a consumer product or an enterprise product, they're going to want to know, like, okay, well, what's your customer acquisition cost? And you don't want all of that to be paid efforts, right? So if you can get stuff through search, and that's going to lower your customer acquisition costs down, and that takes time and investment. It doesn't happen overnight, but start thinking about it early, because the sooner you start getting free traffic, like that's every marketer's favorite kind of traffic to their website or digital property, is the free kind. You just want more and more and more. And some of the old tactics which don't seem as sexy, like SEO and email marketing, are still hugely valuable and important competencies to have.
Any questions that you guys want to share right now? Yeah.
So this is kind of a little off topic about kind of the marketing side of things, but you guys are all founders, and my next question is a little bit more of like, what is kind of the next big thing for you guys? Are you planning, to stay with like this company and nurture it and keep it going, or is there something else that interests you? I just kind of want to know what's the next biggest thing for each of you.
Well, I just went through an acquisition, so it's I've worked for a larger company before. So there's a local networking company called F5. And so that I left that after 13 years to kind of do startups. And in fact, I have more of a product management background. So I was doing that to stay close to customers, to build products, to start companies. So I've two little jumps now. So I will continue to lead kind of the cross-cloud efforts where I'm at. But for me, there's just something so enjoyable about starting a company. And so now my focus is kind of, okay, how do I help this company, VMware, do what they're set out to do? How do I lead the team? They acquired us for a reason, so we want to do that. But then I'm looking at ways that I can stay involved in the startup community, right? So, certainly with Madrona, angel investing, I've got a couple of other friends that are doing funds. So for me, it's fun, and I really enjoy the entrepreneurial spirit, and I like to see people going after it too, because there's just a fire in me to do that. So I'm just trying to figure out ways to support and be involved in the auxiliary until I kind of get my next clearance to do that again. So that's my mentality.
I'm kind of all in where I'm at, but we've been live since August. So all I can see is like the next few weeks in front of me. So for me, I love transactional businesses. I love consumer propositions. So I like transactional businesses just because I like to be able to get my head around the value proposition, to understand where the money comes from, and to see sales every day. And I love just seeing the UPS guy come up every day and just take tons of packages out. There's something really fulfilling for me about that, of getting kind of product into people's hands. So hopefully Rep the Squad comes off to be huge and wildly successful, and I'm all in on that. What's the next after that? Probably another transactional business, but for now I'm 110% into where I'm at right now, and having a ton of fun. So it's great.
And I think that's what you have to be when you're in one of these. Like, I pretty much paused all extracurricular activities when I was, going full bore. So
yeah. And I think what's interesting is that is a very nuanced question that you asked in terms of what the proper official response is, I've learned, right? So especially when you're talking to investors or thinking about what, slides are included in your pitch deck, right? So some want to know what's your exit strategy for this company. And some don't want to know that you're thinking about the exit strategy for this company. Again, what's your audience? I have learned something interesting in being a first-time founder after 10 years in product, and that is that I love building products, and I don't necessarily love being a CEO. So short term, I want to grow this company to where we're funded to the point that I hire a CEO. And I'm happy to share more thoughts on that later, but like I'm a product person at heart, and it's I don't like the distractions from building great products. So if this company goes, and even though, we start something from personal experience that's a passion project, I'll still sell it. I'm not, I want everything for it, but I would love to continue to build products, because I think that if you have that mindset. Just the other day I wrote someone, I'm like, shit, what do I do now? I have another really good idea. So where do I compartmentalize that one? So in the future, if I can keep building products, great. But like you said, you also, you have to be completely focused on taking yours to what the next step is for the company.
Yeah.
I was just kind of curious, how important is it to raise money for your company, and how do you get connected with investors, or is it through networking, or?
Yeah, for my business, money was hugely important because we had to buy inventory. So we needed to have a small warehouse and like actual goods, to be able to effectively provide a subscription service for them. So much of it comes down to relationships, right? So the reason I got connected to Madrona is through my co-founder, and this is our fourth company together. So I think a lot of that, my advice to you guys is just like first is just as you're thinking about your various opportunities. I think I saw a question about maybe changing job, not spending all your whole career at one place. And a lot of what comes out of that for me is just the people that I've worked with in the past. And I think as I look around Rep the Squad, I think there's maybe 2 people there that I haven't worked with before. So just relationships are super, super important.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of, relationships are really important. Money is an interesting thing. Just like your children, having it isn't always a great thing. It can spoil them silly. So sometimes the right thing to do, people have this view that they want to raise a bunch of money and then they can't put it to good use, or, so it's not always the dream. Sometimes you want to, so I don't think there's one thing to do. I think you have to read the business opportunity before you and kind of decide the path that you want to go on. It's perfectly viable to kind of shoestring it and not go out and pursue VC money. When you do pursue VC money, it is a lot of it, you have to understand a tier 1 venture capital mentality. Everybody is trying to make their fund on one home run, right? And so in order to do that, they need to take bets on companies that are billion-dollar ideas, right? And so, assuming that the majority of them fail. So there, the point is there's all this criteria of things that they're looking for, but a big factor of it is trust the idea and do they see this being a big company? So the best way to make introductions and to make inroads to raising money is not through an impatient approach, right? It's like dating, they don't know you. If you put yourself in their shoes, and this is something, this is something that everyone that's thinking about fundraising should do, is would I invest money knowing what they know about me, right? This takes time. They have to understand the idea. They have to understand you. So it's their job to invest in people, but they have to get to know you and warm up. So it takes a while, especially if you're coming in cold without a history in a lot of those relationships. So I guess, the only thing that matters is customer and revenue. And at the end of the day, if you have a great story and customers and revenue, the rest of the stuff will fall into place because they'll all be begging for you for an opportunity to be at the company. So the real tricky part is how do you find that product market fit, and how do you survive that early trying to get a good handful of customers and revenue so that you can compel them. So long answer, but I think at the end of the day, you can get introductions through personal networks and get advice. Approach them from an angle not of fundraising, but of guidance, because that's their job, is to listen to you, to provide guidance. And if you don't ask, if you bring them along the journey, I think you'll figure out and you'll get the feedback of when the right time is to kind of raise and ask, and you'll get a better bearing of where you are.
I have a unique perspective on all of this. And I'll ask you guys, does anybody have any guess as to what percentage of VC capital goes to female-founded companies? Any guess?
Yeah, done it.
Very little.
Very little.
Yeah.
Do you have a number?
Maybe like 5%?
Yeah, 2.19% of VC dollars go to companies that are female-founded. Did you guys know that?
I was going to guess 5, but
Okay.
I did not know.
Yeah, it's small. If you're a woman who even thinks about starting a company, find the Female Founders Alliance here in Seattle and reach out for some information. Raising money as a female founder brings a unique set of challenges. It's different. There's just you have to look at that number and go, something is different. Something is different. Couple of things, and I should know this number and I don't, but the number of VCs who actually have women leading the company or on the team is small, very small. And the percentage of female-founded companies that target consumers that are more consumer-focused or solving women's problems, even though women are the lion's share of consumers in this country, are different. So that we come from a slightly different place. But the things that have been said here are super valuable, like building relationships and asking for advice. If fundraising is hard, it's time consuming, it is like dating. Although I think I probably decided on my husband faster than I have spent time meeting with investors. Once you find that person or persons who will lead your round, So we are bootstrapped. Got very close to our seed round when I was 6 months pregnant. And knowing that raising money does not make things easier. It quite often makes things harder because you are no longer your own boss, right? And now your job is to go out and raise a whole lot more money. It's not spend some time working on your product. It's turn around and get ready to answer to even bigger investors. So the investors that we have who will almost certainly lead our seed, right? You have to find a lead investor, are the ones who sent follow-up questions, thoughts, sit down with us again, let's brainstorm. And then you start that relationship. You go, okay, we're going to take this one further and further and further. So find the ones that'll champion you. Know it takes a long time. You're interviewing them. I mean, these guys all said really good things. Yeah, that'd be my 2 cents. But go without for as long as you can because they want to see that they want to see that traction, and then you're gonna put yourself in a better position.
This is kind of a random question, but like, have any of you guys been through more than one round of VC funding? Yeah, or how many have your companies been through?
I've been through 2, but they were 2 seeds. So both of my companies exited before the A. So I didn't have to do the A, but yeah. That is handy.
Not currently with Rep the Squad, but a previous startup I was in went through, I think, C and then even D rounds, of financing, and raised increasing amounts of money each time.
Money is, it's for going fast, right? And so, it's really to propel you into the next round, and they're really only giving you 18 to 24 months. The formula is 18 months, right, to achieve the next set of goals. So, there is that pressure that comes along with that, right? So,
but I'd agree too. If hey, the longer that you can go without raising outside funds, great. You'll be in more command of your product and your company. Hopefully you'll have increasing data to show that you are a really good investment. And then when it does come time for either a seed round or an A round, you're going to get really great terms because there's going to be more there. There's going to be less risk associated. So if you can stretch that out without making huge sacrifices, try to do so.
And I don't know if you guys have access to these, but Alliance of Angels does free panels and workshops here in this building all the time. And a lot of founders, I certainly went there to learn more about term sheets and pitch decks and all of those pieces. So, that's a free resource that's here and is really useful.
Your question?
So I have a question. It's a bit subjective. I'm kind of curious as to what your guys' opinions of it are. So how important do you think it is to have control over your company, over your product? Some of you guys have talked about, we've been talking about investors a lot recently in the past couple questions. A couple of you, Laura, you mentioned possibly stepping down as CEO someday. So what's your opinion on that?
Well, I mean, I think it depends where your passion lies and why you built the business. I have learned that as a product person, if you run product, right, you really are in control of not of the company, not of the financial decisions or who you're taking investment from, and I think there was a question that had to do with product people and CEOs. So I would say that if product is your passion and building products is, then you would retain control of your company. If you look at it that way, if you are building the product and determining what the customer sees, but control in terms of what investors you work with, maybe you guys can speak to what other areas you would give up control in that sense.
I guess, I'll just talk about control in a more broad sense. I think, I've been a part of companies that they try to over control and hierarchy, create hierarchies and roll decisions up to people that don't need to go to those people, and the whole organization bottlenecks in a bad way. And then I've seen, other people that scale and they know kind of what decisions to let go and what decisions to let people make and what decisions are really critical. And so, I think we've all heard stories of great founders that are, like Steve Jobs, that controls everything. But sometimes it's those founders that are so sometimes the maniacal guys will lead you through the fire, and sometimes they'll kill companies because they just don't know how to scale their decisions. And so I think, I appreciate people that have a sense of scaling and that think about others. And so I don't always do it well. Sometimes I obsess over things that I shouldn't control. But I think the objective is not to think about control. It's just getting the job done, do what you're good at, scale the team. But in terms of company control, there's no board that's going to give you money. When they give you money, and nobody else they may take control, but it's the people in the room that are responsible for delivering. Those guys come in for 1 day a quarter and give you some advice, but at the end of the day, you're the expert in the market, and it's the team in the room that has to deliver. And so your investors are partners. You don't want to view them as, I think you're in a wrong relationship with a board and with investors if you feel like there's things that you need to protect or control or shield. You want a partnership, and that's the dating piece that Laura was mentioning, is that, the same beer test that you would give to a friend that you're, starting this company, you want to be able to trust your investors and have honest, frank conversations. So, I would say, starting with the notion of control is just a defensive, kind of wrong attitude to think about with the whole thing. And you got to think about scaling and partnerships.
Yeah, I'll keep it brief because I don't have a ton unique to add. Other than to say that I think it really the desire for control is directly kind of proportionate to the trust and relationship you have with your investors. So a lot of people who are at venture firms are there because they built successful companies, they had a successful outcome. Therefore, they're now a VC, and they get trusted to make investments in other companies, generally within their same vertical. So if you've had great success in building a marketplace and you were a founder of eBay and now you're a VC, you're going to be marketplace gal or guy and be working in similar consumer propositions. So a lot of it's about that personal connection and relationship you have with whomever your investor is. And hopefully that's built on also just trust and expertise that your category and they know theirs, and there's alignment there, and they can actually be helpful. So yes, you want money to be able to fund your company, but you're also looking for a real expert, informed point of view, and a partner that you can come to when either you need more money later or just advice and good counsel.
I'll add one more piece to that, and that I think that one of the more important skills I've learned as a founder is hiring well. And so that, is control, top down. You will waste more money and more time by making poor hiring decisions, especially when you are, you're hiring contractors and piecemeal, or you're looking for people on Upwork or whatever it is. having the skills and knowledge to be able to find the right people to give control to around certain things, I think is what will really carry your company far. So even if it's like you find one really stellar email marketing person because that is not your forte, they can deliver so much more value, and then you give up that control. So I look forward. I mean, I think that finding pieces for you not to control and know that you found the right people to totally own that just frees up your time for other things, and that's a great thing.
I think we actually have time for maybe one more question. So you guys gave a lot of advice today, but if we didn't actually get to cover something,
The guy
would you want to?
behind you's had his hand up for a while.
Oh no, Colin, you're going to be the final question. The closer.
A little bit about scaling.
Scaling. Perfect.
Yeah, is there any way to pin or correctly pin your early marketing costs or acquisition costs versus like your early profits and like efforts to scale your company eventually?
I'm going to keep passing this.
Could you elaborate a little more on what you mean by pin or?
Yeah, I mean, just kind of like looking at how much you're going to spend in marketing or like trying to find those people that are going to be your early customers versus how much you're going to make like to scale your company.
Can you rephrase it one more time?
How do I rephrase it? I mean,
The investment of building versus finding, is that kind of?
yeah, definitely. Like how much you think you're gonna make? I mean per jersey, and how much you're gonna spend on marketing per click or per acquisition. It just depends on the different business model.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to early on in your business, obviously identify like, hey, what are the fundamental drivers of cost for, your business? So, for us, we look at, customer acquisition cost, or you'll hear the word CAC, if that's a word, the acronym, in our office like every day. So we look at that all of the time. And when you're early, it's going to be high, right? Because you're not going to know exactly what the tactics are that work. When you start out, you're going to probably have no email base to work off of, right? Oh, yeah, we got our first email address today. Let's start building up from there. You're going to have no search engine optimization the day you remove the password from your website or your digital property. That's going to take months to become a part of your business. So a lot of those initial efforts that you make are going to be paid ones while you try and build up, referral programs and all of those kind of unpaid programs. That's going to help you balance out your acquisition cost over time. I'm spending, my Facebook ads are getting more and more, kind of cost efficient. I'm getting better at that. Great, that cost is coming down, getting more traffic from search, awesome, getting more conversions out of email, whatever your conversion happens to mean. All that stuff's going to bring down that acquisition cost over time. For us, but that's only one lever, right? We also have to look at how well do we manage our inventory and understanding, at least from our business uniquely, what's our jersey utilization rate and how well are we capitalizing on the investment we make in inventory there? How do we get smarter about buying over time? What are our operational costs? So how much does our box cost? Our stickers cost? Can we get that cheaper? Can we get it cheaper without eroding the customer experience, kind of in the process, especially when you're early? So those are all things that, that we look at from just the labor of packaging and kind of shipping jerseys. So there's all different kinds of levers at your business. And when it's time to raise money, people are going to want to understand how much does it cost to acquire a customer? How long do your customers stick around? What is the cost of just running your business? Because when you scale, they're going to want to know, hey, what of those get just kind of efficiencies? And it's going to get better, actually, as you add more customers. Like maybe some of your marketing vehicles are just inherently going to get more efficient. But maybe your ops costs are just a disaster right now. And if you 4x your business, you're going to need a crazy amount of capital. So understanding kind of what all those various levels are and how you can having a point of view and hopefully increasing data to show that your volumes are going kind of up and to the right, your acquisition costs are going down, your operational costs are going down. Those are all the levers you need to understand. So hopefully that's in the ballpark of kind of what you're hitting at.
Awesome. Good question. Thanks.
I don't have too much to add to that. I mean, I kind of mentioned before, I'm looking for, complete action, complete activity down a funnel in an enterprise space. So I kind of want to see the whites of the eyes of a handful, a dozen of customers and really dig deep into the value before I kind of pour on some of those. But if you're working on a B2C play or more consumer play, then I'm probably not the best one to answer that.
know that when it's early, it's an art, not a science. There are some formulas you can kind of go, okay, well, in order to make a hockey stick, my numbers need to go this way. We literally ran our first Facebook ads, went, okay, here's our CAC, and it's only going to get better from here. And that was kind of a fine conversation to start with, honestly, because I think that if you if you're early and you sit down with someone and you're like, great, here are our numbers. I know it. Here's what our CAC is. Here's what our revenue is. And you say that without an ounce of recognizing that it's a little bit of BS, they will call you out on it. Because when it's early, it is. I mean, it's not entirely, but it's you're finding your way, and you should be able to say, but I know that here are these things that I would like to try, and how I'm going to lower that. So I think know that pinning those numbers down, they change. And so find a target, know where you are now, say what you would like it to be, and then how you're going to get there.
Awesome. All right, I think we're actually up on time. So thank you so much for coming in.